Welcome to the final video in this series all about animating metahumans in Maya and then rendering them in Unreal Engine 5. If you're following along, you now have Maya and Unreal directly linked. So when you play in Maya, you can see the same thing happening in Unreal. Now we need to record everything inside of Unreal and then export it as a final movie. So let's get into it. Step 1. Record from Maya to Unreal. In Maya, make sure you're in play mode so you'll be able to clearly see in Unreal if the connection is working. Now in Unreal, to record the animation, go to the Window menu, Cinematics, Take Recorder. In the window that comes up, make sure it's set to 24 frames per second. In the outliner, select the 3 lights and drag them into the Take Recorder. In the outliner, select the 4 cameras and drag them into the Take Recorder. And lastly, in the outliner, select Erno and drag it into the Take Recorder. Now, in the outliner, Control-click Erno so nothing is selected. In the Take Recorder, in the Actors list, click on BP Erno. In the options below, find the Reduce Keys option and turn it off. In the top right corner of the Take Recorder, toggle this cog icon on. At the bottom of the Take Recorder, various options are now available. Under the Take Recorder tab, turn off the checkbox Record Timecode. Now turn on the checkbox Record to Possessable. Later on, this will stop your recording from spawning duplicate items when you open it in the sequencer. Okay, change the Unreal viewport scalability to low to increase performance. Go to the File menu and go Save All, in case the Take Recorder crashes, which it sometimes does. Make sure you press play on the scene inside Unreal. Then press Record in the Take Recorder. In the Unreal viewport, you can see the animation playing through. It's still looping inside of Maya, so just watch and make sure you've recorded at least one full take of the whole animation. And then in Unreal, press Stop on the Take Recorder. And then you can press Stop on the top ribbon in Unreal. Now close the Take Recorder panel. Go into the File menu and go Save All, in case Unreal crashes before you save the recording. Okay. Press Alt-Tab to switch to Maya, and press Alt-V to stop the animation playing. You're now finished with Maya. Press Alt-Tab to switch back to Unreal. Step 2. Open recording in Sequencer. Before we edit the sequence that's been recorded, we need to disable the live link connection. Otherwise, all the objects in our scene will behave strangely because they'll still be taking their directions from Maya and not from Unreal. So inside Unreal, go to the live link window and click the trash icon to remove the connection. Go into the content browser. Go to the root of content. Open the Cinematics folder. Takes, and then open the folder with today's date. Select the latest sequence that's in here, but don't double-click on it. Press Ctrl-D to duplicate it. And then rename it, with no spaces, as Erno Animation from Maya V1. Double-click to open this new sequence in the sequencer. Now in the top right of the sequencer, click the padlock icon to unlock the sequence. In the top bar of the sequencer, make sure that the frame rate is set to 24 frames per second. Step 3. Trim down recording in Unreal. Now we need to trim the sequence so it's only the parts of the animation that we need. Marquee select all of the clips on the timeline. And that means every layer. So make sure you're scrolling down. Then scroll back up and visually choose a frame that the animation starts. In the sequencer playback controls, you can go back and forward one frame at a time, which can help to be accurate. Right-click the top clip and choose Edit, Trim Section Left. Now click and drag all the clips you've selected to the left so they start at frame 0. Now scrub through to the final frame of the animation before it loops. Right-click on the top clip and choose Edit, Trim Section Right. Now it's important that you move the red marker so it's on your final frame. You might want to zoom into the sequencer so you can set it really accurately. Step 4. Add camera switch in Unreal. Now at the top of the sequencer, to the right of the words Camera Cuts, click on the camera icon. It will turn white. Now we need to go through and make the cameras change as the animation plays. We're going to use the UberCam01 camera as a reference to find the 4 times when the cameras change, and split the Camera Cuts clip every time they do. So we'll start by setting all the animation to UberCam01. So right-click on the clip that's on the Camera Cuts track, and at the bottom of the pop-up, click on UE UberCam01. Now scrub forward in the timeline, and find the point where the camera changes angle. On the frame that it does, right-click on the Camera Cuts clip, go Edit, Split Section. Now keep scrubbing forward so you can find the second time that the camera changes angle. On the frame that it does, right-click on the Camera Cuts clip, go Edit, Split Section. Now keep scrubbing forward so you can find the third time that the camera changes angle. On the frame that it does, right-click on the Camera Cuts clip, go Edit, Split Section. One more to go, so keep scrubbing forward so you can find the fourth and final time that the camera changes angle. On the frame that it does, right-click on the Camera Cuts clip, go Edit, Split Section. Now we've split up the Camera Cuts clip, but all 5 clips are still switched to UE UberCam01. So right-click on the first clip, and at the bottom of the pop-up, click on UE Cam01. Right-click the second clip, and at the bottom of the pop-up, click on UE Cam02. Right-click the third clip, and this time choose UE Cam01. Right-click the fourth clip, and choose UE Cam03. Right-click the fifth clip, and at the bottom of the pop-up, click on UE Cam01. Okay, now if you scrub through, you'll see that the cameras all switch at the correct times. Step 5. Add post-process volume. Before we export the animation as a movie, we want to make sure it looks as good as possible. So go to Place Actors. In the search box, type in Volume. Then drag a post-process volume into the scene. In the World Outliner, click on the post-process volume. In the Details panel, in the search bar at the top, type in Infinite. Click to enable Infinite Extend Unbound. Now clear the search field. Scroll down in the post-process volume, and under Film, enable Slope, and change it to 0.6. Then in Color Grading, under Global, turn on Saturation and change it to 1.26. Then turn on gain and change it to 1.42. If the grooms for your MetaHuman appear overly dark, you may want to adjust the hair shadow density. To do that, open up the MetaHuman, find the hair, and you'll find something called hair shadow density, which you can change to a lower value. Then press compile and save. In the World Outliner, click once again on the post-process volume, and then search in the Details tab for Motion Blur. Make sure it's set to 0.5. Now go up and change the viewport scalability to cinematic, and then in the Details panel, search for translucency. If you enable this and turn it to ray tracing, you may have problems with eyelashes on certain MetaHumans. In that case, you need to disable this or set it to raster. Now clear the search field at the top of the Details panel. Step 6. Export movie at draft quality. Now let's output a movie that will render almost instantly to make sure everything looks right before we waste time doing a higher quality render, which might take half an hour or so to process. So go to the Window menu, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. Click the green plus Render button and choose the sequence you want to render. It should be called Erno Animation from Maya V1. In the Settings column, click on Unsaved Config. We want to output a ProRes video. So click on JPEG Sequence 8-bit, then click Delete on your keyboard. Now click the green plus setting key and choose Apple ProRes. In the settings that appear, click the Codec dropdown and choose Apple ProRes 422 LT. On the left side of the window, click on Output. In the file name format text field at the very end, add a space and then the word draft. Click to enable the Use Custom Frame Rate checkbox. Make sure the output frame rate dropdown is set to 24 FPS film. Click the Load Save Preset button in the top right. Click on Save as Preset. Type in the name VF Quick Render _ ProRes 422 LT. Click Save. Now click Accept to close the settings window. Press the green Render Local button. A pop-up will appear and it's going to run through the render. Once it's finished, click on the entry in the Output column. This is going to open the output directory in Windows Explorer. You can now double-click to open the rendered movie file, which should be called something like Erno Animation from Maya V1 draft.mov. Keep in mind that the movement of the character will appear a little bit jittery, even if you're getting buttery smooth playback at 24 frames per second. I'll talk about this at the end of the video, but it's partly just because recording via LiveLink is always going to have imperfections, but it's also because the motion capture we used actually has a lot of jitter in it, which you can remove in Maya, but it's a little bit beyond the scope of this video series. Step 7. Export movie at highest quality. Now let's render the animation at the highest possible quality we can get, including high quality anti-aliasing and other settings. By the way, I usually export movies as a PNG sequence and then compile them in Premiere, but to make this tutorial easier, we'll export it as a high quality ProRes file. Okay. In the settings column, click on VF Quick Render. On the left side, click on Apple ProRes. Then in the Codec dropdown, choose Apple ProRes 4444 XQ. On the left side of the window, click on Output. In the file name format text field at the very end, change the word draft to ProRes 4444. Now we need to adjust the anti-aliasing, so click the green plus setting key again and choose anti-aliasing. Change temporal sample count to 64. Change override anti-aliasing to be turned on. Change anti-aliasing method to none. Now click the green plus setting key and choose console variables. In the options that appear, click the plus icon to the right of 0 map elements. a blank text field will have appeared below console variables. Now we're going to add a series of console variables. Make sure when you're typing these in that you keep them all as one word all together, and that you capitalize every word except for the letter R. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So in the text field that's appeared, type in R, and that's lowercase r, dot ambient occlusion, and that's ambient occlusion with a capital A, capital O, all one word, everything put together, dot denoiser, dot temporal accumulation. Now copy the words denoiser dot temporal accumulation, because you're going to use that again and again and again. Now click the plus icon again, and in the text field that's appeared, type in R, and that's lowercase r, dot global illumination, one word, capital G, capital I, dot, and then paste in denoiser dot temporal accumulation. Now click the plus icon again, and then text field type in R, and that's lowercase r, dot reflections, capital R, dot, and then paste in denoiser dot temporal accumulation. We've got two more to go. Click the plus icon again. In the text field, type in R dot shadow dot, and then paste in denoiser dot temporal accumulation. One more, click the plus icon, and in the text field type in R, and that's lowercase r, dot depth of field quality. And that's depth of field quality with capital DOFQ. And then in the text box to the right of it, type in the number 4. Everything else will be just set to 0, but this one's set to 4. If you happen to have added foliage to your scene, click the plus icon once again, and in the text field that has appeared, type in R, and that's lowercase r, dot ray tracing, capital R, capital T, dot geometry, dot instanced static meshes, capital I, S, and M, dot culling, capital C, and set that to 0. And that's going to help shadows not disappearing with your foliage. Click the Load Save Preset button in the top right. Click on Save as Preset. Type in the name VF HQ render underscore ProRes 4444. Click Save. Now click Accept to close the settings window. Press the green Render Local button. A pop-up will appear and it's going to run through the render. Once it's finished, click on the entry in the Output column. This is going to open the output directory in Windows Explorer. You can now double-click to open the rendered movie file, which should be called something like Erno Animation from Maya V1 ProRes 4444.mov. Step 8. Final result and ways to improve. We now have our final result, but keep in mind that this is not perfect. There's so many things we could do to improve it, but it's just a great starting point. And as I step through it, you can see some obvious issues. You can see that the animation has some problems with stuttering and duplicate frames. Those are not present in our original Maya animation, so this is just an unfortunate drawback of the live link recording process. That's why, in my opinion, you should only use live link recording as a rough preview of your animation, and then use FBX transfer instead for the absolute best result. There's so much more you can add to this scene if you want to move further. You can smooth the mocap animation to remove the jitters in the body animation. You can add lip sync to your character to get it talking. You can add autofocus to each of your cameras inside Maya so they keep your character's face in focus as it moves. You can add a prop that your MetaHuman interacts with, like a book or a gun. You can add ragdoll physics animation to make your character fall naturally. You can add a second metahuman into your scene and have them interact. You can make your own clothing and add it into your scene. That's just some of the things that I encourage you to do now that you've learned the basics of making a metahuman scene in Maya and connecting it to Unreal Engine. Thank you so much for following along with all of this process. I hope the video series has been useful for somebody at least. Please leave a comment and a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you feel like it for more videos just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.